This episode is sponsored by True Blue Migration Services. Get yourself a free visa assessment when you mention that Johnston life, and let them tell you your best chances for migrating to Australia. Speak to them now on their website at truebluemigration.com. Moving to the other side of the world is tough. We know this firsthand after moving to Australia during a global pandemic. To help you decide whether a life down under is for you, this series aims to share with you the highs and the lows of the migration journey, to both help and inspire you to make the move to Australia yourself. Our guest today also made the move during these difficult times, and even spent 2 weeks quarantining in Darwin. Is life better for them now living in Sydney after migrating from the UK? Well, I guess we'll find out. Welcome, Hannah. How's it going?
It's very good, thank you. How are you?
I have been at work all day and I'm perkier than usual, considering over the last 6 weeks having a newborn. Every time I come home from work, I'm absolutely knackered.
How long have you been back at work after baby number 2?
I think 3 weeks, because I had the half term. Well, we don't even call it half term now. That's an English thing, isn't it? We had the end of term, and then I had a week paternity as well. So, yeah, just doesn't... It goes too quickly, really.
Hopefully settle into a routine sometime soon.
Yeah, I thought that with the first one, and now the second one isn't really doing it's much better. Okay, it's enough about me. It's all about you. Tell us about yourself.
So I'm Hannah. I'm in my mid-30s and moved to Australia just over a year ago. Previously was living in London with my boyfriend, and we both made the move after coming here on holiday a few times and really loving it.
What did you like about Australia when you came on holiday?
The weather. So the last 12 months has been a little bit different to what it was like when we came on holiday. We really enjoy just the real outdoorsy lifestyle. Everyone is pretty relaxed. Everyone's very friendly. I know you said that in a number of your videos, and just really got a good vibe.
What videos? What are you on about? Yeah, to be honest, living in England, I found the vibe really wasn't there. You just kind of go to work and everyone seems to be grumpy. But here, it's like everyone's kind of singing off the same hymn sheet, or the very few minority of people that actually kind of aren't.
Yeah, and there's definitely a more relaxed vibe. Working in London, it definitely felt a little bit like the rat race. So to what you said, you go to work, you do what you need to do, and everything's just really busy. Whereas, of course, we're busy here, traveling, taking trips. We both have jobs, but it just feels a little bit different. And I think just the people and the climate and everything like that really helps with that.
Tell us a little bit more about your life before you moved to Australia.
We were living in London. We actually moved there. I moved there a couple of months before the pandemic. My boyfriend bought a flat, and yeah, we moved into that. Thought it'd be great living in London, and then the pandemic hit, and it was good. We both had jobs in professional services, so yeah, very much sort of city living. Weirdly though, London, the busiest city in the UK, we didn't have a lot of super close friends. Like, it's surprising how we had a lot of friends, but it's surprising how big London is when you just want to meet someone for a coffee. Whereas here, we've made friends that are all relatively close by, and we bump into people when we're out for a walk or for a run, or just getting an ice cream by the beach or whatever that might be. And I really like that about it. And I like that we are building our life here together as well.
Where did you live before you came to London?
We were living in Farnborough.
Okay.
So out in Hampshire.
Yeah, close to my area of the world. I used to live in Tadley.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you going, well, Tadley? Where's Tadley? I have absolutely no idea where Tadley is.
Yeah, I actually don't.
Between Basingstoke and Reading. Yeah.
Okay.
We used to live in Reading, and then realised when we wanted to buy a house that actually we couldn't afford a house in Reading. So we just kind of went a bit further out, which is what most people do, I assume.
Yeah, and prior to that, I was living in Salisbury, so started sort of making my way closer to London.
Getting closer.
Now I've gone really far away from London.
Yeah. Well, what did London do?
Just had a sense of adventure, I think. Just wanted to move away, and not move away from people, but it sounds really cheesy, but we do only have one life. Kind of got to take the opportunities when we want to. No one's getting any younger.
Insert cliche here.
Yeah, definitely.
One would be like bull by the horns.
Yeah. It's true though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You kind of got to make the best out of the life that you've got. And for us, that was making a decision to move to Australia at that point in time.
So what were the most important reasons for your move?
I think really a sense of adventure. Don't get us wrong, we loved our life in the UK. We really enjoyed, obviously, our friends, our family. I love the green rolling hills. I grew up in Devon. But for us, it was about doing something different and doing those things that you don't always get the opportunity to do. So really, sort of going back to the cliche, taking bull by the horns and really going for it.
Yeah, well, growing up in Devon, you really have kind of made the sequential steps all the way into civilization in London.
Baby
Yeah,
steps.
baby steps, baby steps. I always, growing up, I grew up in Kent, and I feared London. Just it was too big. The whole idea of going into London and not knowing where everything is, it scared the crap out of me. And then when I went to university in Reading, just the idea of going on the train into London, it's like, yeah, let's do that. I don't mind doing that. And it just kind of didn't scare me anymore. And then now living in Brisbane, I think this is probably the most densely populated, even though it's not densely populated, but the most densely populated part of the world I've ever lived in. And I'm just kind of, hey, maybe I might move into somewhere really, really more urban, or this just might be it.
Good balance of plenty of open space around, but still all the benefits of suburban living, I suppose.
I mean, that's the thing. You just want convenience sometimes, don't you? Especially with two screaming kids. Noticed I added the adjective in there, but you just want an easy life. And yeah, I think I kind of felt the same as you. But the thing I would probably add in there is it just wasn't getting any easier in England.
I didn't feel like our life was getting harder, but for us, it was the timing kind of all worked out quite well. We had already decided before COVID came around and the pandemic, and we were stuck in London with really no one around,
playing pub quizzes on Skype and things like that.
Yeah, the family quizzes were pretty epic. We were like, let's choose 10 questions each, and we were literally there for like 4.5 hours. But for us, it was really just, I think maybe the pandemic was a little bit of not a wake up call, but almost helped to make that decision that actually this is something that we want to do. And, potentially, hopefully not, touch wood, but these things, borders can close quickly, things can happen. So let's just at least apply, see what happens, and take the next steps from there.
Yeah, let someone else make our decision. We'll just put the application in, and they'll tell us whether we can do it. I just love the way that you kind of thought, let's do it now with COVID, because what's a better time to do it? And then ScoMo just shuts the borders, and it's like, so maybe we can't really come so easily.
Yeah, it was not quite as simple as it was for people who even came maybe 3 or 4 weeks after us.
Okay.
Once the borders opened, we were in that last kind of 4 to 6 week bracket of people who had to go into quarantine, and there were caps on flights and things like that. So it was.
How many people were on your flight?
It was quite full, actually. I can't remember how many people, but yeah, it was pretty full. And then we went off to Howard Springs and did our quarantine.
So what was it like quarantining in Howard Springs as opposed to, we did ours in a hotel?
For us, we weren't constrained in one room. We had a little veranda, so everyone that was going to Howard Springs is actually allocated a room. Even if it's a 1-month-old baby, that baby will be allocated a room just to give the families or couples a bit more space. So everyone gets like an individual room that's got an ensuite. It's like a transit camp. And we had a little like veranda out the front, and then there were 3 other couples like in our little quad who we're actually all really good friends with still. We call ourselves.
Could you talk to them on like the different verandas and see them? You just can't go over there.
Yeah, we'd like shout at each other, and we were allowed to go and do our washing every other day. So we had set days to go and do our washing. Never done as much laundry in my life. But it was, you had a little walk to the laundry, and then obviously you came back, then you went to put it in out on the line to dry, and then you came back, then you went to pick it up. It was like, really getting our steps in today. But yeah, it was nice to be able to just chat to people. And when they came, we would get a knock on the door on the days that we had our tests, and everyone would be up and they'd drop off our meals and stuff like that. So it was good, actually. I think for me personally, we had just been so busy, as you know, in the run up to moving. There's just so much happening, so much admin to do, so much packing. It's quite emotional because you're saying goodbye to everyone. And for me, it was a really nice sort of enforced rest, I suppose.
2 weeks of nothing. You're probably never going to get that again in your life.
Yeah, like, let's read some books, let's watch some stuff. So, you know, I read loads of books on my iPad, watched a load of stuff on Netflix, had a handful of work calls and things like that, and then felt ready to, when we then flew to Sydney afterwards, via Brisbane actually, ready to, you know, sort of tackle everything. We did a lot of the admin in quarantine, similar to yourself, you know, applying for your TFN, getting your Medicare card sorted and everything like that. So it felt that when we came here, we were able to enjoy the space that we had around us, but also kind of focus on finding somewhere to live and things like that. So it was quite well planned out, I suppose. And we, you know, I had lists coming out of my ears. I love a list. Anyone that knows me.
You sound so much more organised than I am.
So yeah, it was good. I kind of enjoy admin, but that was a little bit too much for me. Even for me, it was a bit too much. And just figuring out like what Medicare actually is and what the surcharge is, and
I still don't really know.
It's just the differences, isn't it, between something that you have just grown up with your whole life and you don't know any different, and you've never had to learn it because it's just there, and then you move and it's picking up all of these different little things that mean different things and figuring things out, I suppose, and really trying to get stuck into life, not as quickly as possible, because that makes it sound like I was rushing everything, but trying to get settled is probably the main thing. And, you know, we probably, like everyone, we still have days where we don't feel settled. Some, you know, might have a bad day at work, or something happens at home in the UK and you're like, oh yeah, actually I do miss home, or just for no reason at all. You're like, oh, I'd really like to see that person, or just call that person, and it's the middle of our day, which means it's the middle of their night. So yeah.
Have you been back at all since you've been?
I actually went back 6 months after we moved, which was
pretty much as soon as the borders reopened.
Yeah, well, it was something that I wanted to do if I was able to. Two of my friends were getting married, and both of their weddings had been delayed from COVID. Two separate weddings, and they, when they rescheduled their weddings, they were one weekend after another, and they don't know one another. So, and I was bridesmaid at both of them, so it was just so lovely to go back and be a part of that. I just feel really fortunate that I was able to, and
all the stars aligned.
They really did, and got a couple of days with my parents as well. So.
Oh, they're not important. It's all about weddings.
And I didn't get COVID, so yeah. I was so nervous going for the test and everything. Again, they scrapped that about 3 days after I got back. But
oh, really?
Yeah, just like it's quite a nerve-wracking time when you're.
And now we live in a world where COVID doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do what you want. Oh, you've got COVID, go to work. It's okay. You only feel a little bit sick. Just don't cough on anyone.
Yeah, exactly. You do see people coughing around and you're like, ooh.
How did you manage to get here then, sort of during the end of the pandemic? What visa are you on?
So we're actually on what's called the Global Talent Program. And that is not me. It's my boyfriend. I'm just here as his de facto spouse. But we made the decision to move here, and, you know, the visa process can be pretty daunting with the points based and all of the different things. You may have had to do an English language test and things like that. Like I
did.
It's some of the requirements are, they can put you off. You know, you've got to be real dedicated to want to get here. And it was actually a friend of my boyfriend's who said, hey, you know, have you looked at this program? So we looked at that, and the field that my boyfriend works in was on that list at that point in time. It fluctuates quite frequently from what I understand. And the idea of that program is that it brings people who are relatively senior in their field and relatively experienced, gives them the opportunity to move to Australia with permanent residency for them and their dependents in a field that Australia has deemed that they have a requirement for. Again, kind of the stars aligned and the timing all worked out. And we actually applied for that in the September of the first pandemic year. And a couple of literally 2 or 3 days after we applied, we got an invitation inviting us to go and have our medical, which was, we were like, oh, surely they wouldn't be asking us to pay money if it wasn't looking positive. Anyway, we went ahead with that. They
want to make the money out of you on that.
And we were fortunate.
Trying to get a visa, aren't you?
Because you really are. But there's not many places that do the medical sort of checks that you need to have. Fortunately, we were living in London at the time, and there was one.
There should be at least a couple in London.
Yeah, there was one about a half an hour walk from where we lived. So it was all very convenient, very fortunate. And then we actually found out about 3 or 4 weeks after that we had got the visa, and it happened a lot quicker than we were expecting, because I would imagine it's the same for all visas. You have to enter the country within 12 months of being granted that visa.
Yep.
You can request an extension, but we didn't want to do that. And we were kind of thinking, oh, it will come through, if we get it, we'll hear around January time. And then, so we could have Christmas here, because Christmas has been ruined by COVID a few times. It just came through so much quicker than we expected. And after that point, we really just, we booked our flights really early on. I spoke to work. I actually transferred. I was very fortunate. Worked for a global company. So yeah, and then all the lists came out. Started making the lists. So, what do we need to do in Australia and here? We've both got properties in the UK. So making sure that all of those things were done.
Did you sell them, or do you still have
them?
No,
we have them still.
Taxman has to know about that then.
Yes, we are. He does on both sides. Just things like that we definitely thought about, but it can be quite stressful as well, because it's quite a big asset that you're then like, oh, not going to be able to see the house or for a long time. And obviously sorting through stuff. We actually brought 6 boxes with us. We shipped them over, and my bike. We were limited just to 1 bag on our flight over. So
tell us, what's this magical profession that gets you a visa in like 5 weeks?
So my partner works in cybersecurity.
We need those.
At the time that we were looking to move over, it was one of the professions that was on the list. I'm not sure if it still is.
It probably is, considering everyone's getting hacked.
That's true, yes. You wouldn't want to work at Optus right now, would you?
You wouldn't want to be with Optus. They're the reason I've got this dodgy internet.
My understanding is that there are changes in the requirements, and jobs come and go like they do on any of the kind of skilled shortage lists. Yeah, we were just fortunate. The timing aligned very well with our plans and what we wanted to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You talked about challenges. What's the biggest challenge that you've had so far since living in Australia?
Not really sure. I think just adjusting to living somewhere that's very different.
What's the biggest difference that you found then?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I say different, but it's just not where I've always lived. I think is more to the point. It's just getting used to those things that I touched upon earlier, like a lot. It's mostly around the admin and just the way that certain things are set up, like just been trying to do my tax return. And
yeah, that was weird doing that for the first time.
It would have been super simple if I didn't have any income from the UK from my property, but it's just working out what that calculation is.
Did you do it yourself?
I have done it myself, but I am getting it checked.
You can claim that back on your tax next year if you use a tax accountant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which doesn't make it particularly free. When someone first told me that, I was like, "What? You get a free accountant?" Like, no, it just comes off your tax threshold.
So yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge, and I think probably the weather as well. Living in Sydney, and for yourself in Brisbane, it's La Nina in the last 12 months has been, everyone's saying, "Oh, you brought the English weather with you,"
yeah, that was all me. Yeah.
And also, we don't have weather like this in the UK. Like, it might rain, but not like this. It was, I've been to India and Nepal during monsoon season, and it was more like that. It was so torrential. So I think maybe not being able to get out and about as freely as maybe we expected to. And first world problems, they're not big issues, but just the adjustment, I think.
That's how the whole of the British people run, isn't it? Just whinging about the weather. So it's not really...
Yeah, love a good chat about the weather.
We've never experienced rain like it either. When we had all the flooding in sort of February and March, I think one of the statistics for around where we live is we got about 1,400 mils of rainfall in the one event. And that, when I looked it up, that's like how much rain we got in a year in England.
Yeah,
I think that might even be the amount of
madness,
rain that we get in a year normally here. And it just happened in one go. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's such an adjustment as well. And I think also living in a city, you also don't necessarily, and maybe this is me being naive, but just the flooding that was happening everywhere. It's not just the rivers bursting their banks, just the sheer volume of water that's coming out of the sky, and there's really nowhere for it to go. Fortunately, we were living on a hill for us, but we had friends that were flooded, and like basements flooded and stuff like that. And it's just also the humidity.
If you think it's humid down in Sydney, God, you should experience a Brisbane summer. Then go for a Cairns summer, like far north Queensland. Yeah, absolutely.
Start moving my way up.
We really want to go to Darwin, but I'm just scared to go there if it's summer. And I know that's great because then I get a really, really big holiday. But just Darwin in the summer. I think I'd just cook.
Yeah, that would be hot.
I'd have to do it in the winter.
I mean, we were there in September and it got up to 36 degrees one day.
And what was the humidity like though?
It was actually quite dry. It didn't feel that humid. I mean, we had no real point of reference because that was when we were there in quarantine. But we'd definitely like to go back. And we've recently been to the outback around Uluru and Alice Springs. We did a little 5-day road trip, and that was hot, but again, not humid. It was quite a dry heat, so it was quite nice. I was like a lizard out there, like, oh, this sun is lovely. Where's this been? This is what we were expecting to be when we came to Australia. So
wow, you really have done a few trips.
Yeah, definitely making the most of it.
You're doing the trips like you're a tourist and you're going to go back.
Yeah, we're almost kind of saying we're not going to go on holiday out of Australia until we've done not all the places we'd like to go. But there are some sort of big trips that we'd like to do in Australia.
What big trips are you planning next? What's your next big one?
We're actually coming up to Brisbane at the end of November, there for a weekend, and then we're going to Lady Elliot Island.
Where's that?
It's at the southern tip of the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, okay.
You fly there from...
Thank God you said that, because it would have made me sound bad if you'd have gone, oh, it's just the other side.
Yeah. And it's like a little eco island. They do a lot of like reef conservation, that was the word I was after, tracking a lot of the sea animals and things like that. So they have a lot of turtles there and manta rays. So it's going to be amazing.
Are you going there to get involved, or are you just kind of to observe?
Definitely to observe. Like, you can dive and snorkel on the reef and things like that. So, and there's a maximum number of people that are allowed on the island at any one point.
Very exclusive.
So it's very small as well. So yeah, it'll be really nice. Really looking forward to just being around the turtles and the rays. And we're actually doing a diving course this weekend to prepare ourselves for that, so we can do some diving while we're there.
Have you dived before?
We haven't, no. My boyfriend's done a try dive, but I never have. So it'll be...
So what are you going
for?
It'll be good the open water diver?
Yes. Yeah, just the basic paddy.
I think I've got one of those digging around somewhere. I haven't used it in years.
Yeah. And then we've got some friends coming over from the UK for 5-6 weeks over the Christmas period.
Awesome.
And we're going up to Townsville and doing sort of the Whitsundays and Early Beach. And
look at you. Here's a good question for you. So it sounds like you've got so much. I mean, Australia's a big place, but it sounds like you've got so much already planned to visit in Australia. Were you as well travelled in England, like within England?
Probably not, but I probably was viewing it from a different perspective as well. That, I'd always lived there, and I think, not to sound sad, but we don't have as many friends here as we did in the UK. So in the UK, weekends would often be spent going to see friends at their house or vice versa, and going to the places maybe where people were, as opposed to exploring new places.
I have some real jealousy over all of your trips. Why do you think you found it so difficult to make friends here? Yeah, I didn't mean it in that way. Like, you're a weirdo. Why are you not making friends?
No, I know you didn't. I think when you grow up somewhere and you have your friends around you, you maybe take it for granted a little bit. Don't get me wrong, we've met people. I've met some amazing people through work. We met our friends in quarantine who are probably like our closest, like, big group of friends. I've got friends that live here who I know from before, who emigrated sort of 4 or 5 years ago. And it was actually their wedding that I came to first. And I was like, Sydney's amazing. Let's come here on a holiday a couple of months later. So yeah, it's good. And I think we're maybe more not invested. That's unfair. But it's a different scenario. We're very much making friends together as well. Whereas in the UK, we had our kind of our own groups of friends. I don't feel like a lot of people say, oh, it's really hard to, make friends in Sydney in particular. And I haven't actually found that. I think it's just the balance of work and not having that group of people organically around you that have always been there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't, I think I know what you mean, because you're talking about the friends that you had that you can't bring with you.
Yeah.
You can't replicate those types of friendships. And I guess, for a lot of people that perhaps would consider wanting to go back to the UK because they want those friendships back, I think that's a big hurdle for lots of people to get over, isn't it? It's the fact that, you will meet new people, you will make new friends, and for the right or wrong reasons, but you'll never make or recreate those friendships that you have in the UK. But that's okay.
lifelong friendship is very different to not necessarily making friends in adulthood. I've got some incredible friends that I've made, even in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think growing up with people, you just form a different bond. And actually saying that, my best friend lives in America. So, and our friendships actually got stronger. I mean, we were already best friends and super close before she moved to America, but we talk every day. We make the time zone work. And it's the same with all of my friends in the UK. I wouldn't say any of my friendships have particularly suffered. And I like that I'm still able to maintain such strong friendships with people, but also make new friends here and enjoy the life that we have here, but also really relishing the time that me and my boyfriend have together as well, because we have one another. We've had to rely on one another pretty much solely for the last 12 months. And it's really, obviously, doing something like that, moving to the other side of the world, it really, really brings you together and makes you stronger. So it's really...
How long have you been together?
Nearly 6 years.
Wow,
so
it's getting to that time.
But
if he ever hears this is me saying you might want to see about visiting a jeweler.
I'll let him watch it. But yeah, it's just really, really nice to be able to spend that time, really invest that time with one another as well. That maybe
it's a good test, right?
Yeah, it is. But also in the UK, there's maybe a lot more distractions. Whereas here, it's like we've made this conscious decision to move to Australia, and we're going to make the most of it, and we're going to have a really awesome time doing it, and we really are. Awesome. So yeah.
One of the things that Sam said to me actually when I first floated the idea of wanting to move to Australia was, she said, well, I'm not moving with you unless we're married or at least engaged. So I was like, oh, I better do something about that.
It's also different in Australia with the de facto relationship. Very different from in the UK, we were just boyfriend and girlfriend, whereas here it's very much treated like a spouse.
Did you have to prove that in any way?
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we had to prove that we were together, that we had joint friends, and that we did things together. Yeah, so I made a PowerPoint presentation.
You made a PowerPoint? Wow.
Yeah, and made it into like a PDF for our application.
Did you have to present it for someone?
No, I didn't stand up in front of a screen or anything, but it was actually really nice to go through, and we had to write a joint statement and things like that. Whereas, to your point, if you're married, you present a marriage certificate.
Yeah, just got one of these, mate.
Yeah,
ball and chain.
As simple as that.
Don't tell her
Sam's going to watch this.
Ball and chain.
Yeah, but yeah, I think, going back to sort of my starting point, it is a cliche, but you kind of got to make the best of your life and take the opportunities that are there. And for us, we're very adventurous. We like traveling to new places. We like seeing new things. We like experiencing new things. We have stand-up paddleboards here that we never had in the UK because we weren't living close to the beach. Small things like that. I swim in the ocean a lot. It's just a very different way of life, but still really kind of bonded to those foundations that I was brought up on as well.
Sounds like you're really enjoying it.
Great combination.
I don't think I've heard anyone ever talk so happily about their life.
Oh yeah, it's good.
So what plans do you have then for your future?
We're very open-ended, I think. In terms of, we would of course like to get our citizenship, because it feels like that's the next natural step to take for us.
Have you had a go at the practice test yet?
Yeah, we did it along with you. Actually,
you did it with me. What, like what?
Yeah, went on your video.
Like the practice test.
Impressive work, getting 100%.
I bet that reminded you a little bit like those Skype quizzes back in COVID.
Exactly. Yeah, the family quizzes. It was intense.
What did you score?
I think we chose one question different to you.
So you didn't get 20?
95%.
We
got 19.
I got 20. I didn't know what most of the words meant. I was like, secular?
It was the judicial one,
yeah,
I think.
I had to reread that
judicial
one.
That one. Yeah, and then when we thought about it, we were like, yeah, we see why that was the answer.
You just kind of read it and you think, yeah, obviously it's that. And then you just didn't read all of the words. And now as an English teacher, I know my students, if they ever hear me say this, you've got to read all the words, sir.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we really like it here. We're feeling settled. We're currently renting with no plans to buy at the moment, which...
Can you afford in Sydney?
If we sold our houses in the UK, maybe, yeah.
Well, that might be the final step to really prove permanency.
Yeah. So definitely not on the cards anytime soon. Just really kind of taking each year as it comes and just enjoying ourselves and exploring and
Would you
traveling.
move out
And
of Sydney? Is that definitely?
yeah, we would. Yeah, we've not sort of seriously looked at it. We're only just over a year in here, but it's definitely something that we would consider. To where, we're not sure, but definitely not sort of wedded to Sydney itself, and certainly not even the area within Sydney that we live.
Do you have any big regrets about the move?
I don't think so. No, we actually talked through this yesterday. No, we don't.
There's no regrets at all.
We were trying to rack our brains thinking for one, so that's a good sign, I think.
Not even one, like a little one.
No.
What's one thing you'd change if you could do it again?
Probably not flying during COVID, as in like not having our relocation flight. We can't really change that, but that was our decision. We could have delayed if we wanted to, but we, in our minds, you're set on getting here, and we didn't really want to change that. But yeah,
you wouldn't have met all your quarantine buddies.
I know, yeah, that would have been really sad, actually.
And what was your biggest concern about moving to Australia, and how do you feel about it now?
I think maybe just missing friends and family. Of course, I miss them.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh yeah, I came here and I don't miss them. Absolutely, I do.
Absolutely heartless if you did.
Yeah. No, my really miss friends and family, but also feel really fortunate that technology is so advanced now. And also, I think moving here during and like after the pandemic, everyone's kind of used to doing a lot more online and having Zoom calls and things like that. That's really nice to be able to do that, and it's normal, I suppose. So being able to keep in touch in other ways, and I still write to my grandparents. And
you were saying about the time difference. I find the time difference is enough. Like, call me in your morning and it'll be my evening, or vice versa. Like if it was,
it does work quite well, I think, with the time difference. And just kind of making it work, I guess. Some weeks I might speak to my parents maybe every day on the phone, just because of what we're both doing. And other weeks, we might go a week without speaking, and we try not to kind of schedule it. I know some people have calls like every Sunday night or something like that, whereas ours is a bit more
that's nice.
ad hoc, and I like that. It can feel a bit, when you want to catch up with people, it does have to be a bit scheduled. It's less like just picking up the phone and giving someone a call, but you just make it work and you maintain those friendships and the links with family and what's happening. And
so you don't feel left out from the family, even though they're living. Do you have a big family?
Yeah, I've got my parents and then my brother, and my brother's actually having a baby. Well, not him, his girlfriend's having a baby in February. So I think that will be quite a big change in terms of not necessarily feeling left out, but not being there as a family. But yeah, I think for me, the distance doesn't make a difference. It's, you're still forming those friendships and maintaining those bonds. And it's about looking at it from a very much a glass half full perspective. We could get down and out about it, but we decided to move here and we are enjoying ourselves and we want to make the most of it. So how can we make the most of it? Like, have a positive outlook, I think.
Do you find it's easier to have a positive outlook being in Australia?
Yeah, I suppose to a degree, but I can't put my finger on exactly what maybe drives that. I think for us, it's still very new. It's still very exciting. So we're, when we're booking trips, it's really exciting and looking forward to people coming over to visit and see us and things like that. So it will make maybe I'll get worn down. I don't know. Hopefully not. I mean, we have a whinge, I suppose.
You're allowed
every
to.
now and again,
especially
when it's raining so much. And I actually think that from a upbeat perspective, it has been the weather that's really unexpectedly, maybe given us this is, we feel far away from home. That is when the weather's been bad that we felt like that.
Well, you can blame me. It's not you, because I've technically never had a proper summer here. They've always been La Nina ones. This is my third now.
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully this is the last.
It's because I was a geography teacher. Just bring the weather with me.
I won't blame you.
Well, someone will. Some keyboard warrior will. Okay, last thing. What advice would you have for people wanting to make the move?
If you've thought about making the move, it's probably something that you're serious about. People have reached out to me and been like, oh, I'm interested in moving to Australia. And I'm like, well, do it. Like, look into it. Look and see what, whether your job's on the skill shortage list, and see what options there are. If it's something you really want to do, just make it happen. It's complicated, but really when you break it down, it's really simple. Like, is this something you want to do? Is this something that you want to do for your life and what you and your family want to do? If the answer is yes, just give it a go. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, you just
Just go back to the UK. UK or wherever it is you're coming from.
And you'll probably be happier that you sold all the crap that you've accumulated all of your life and just minimalized it all down. And then even if you do go back, you could just start again. It's quite nice to start things again, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was quite, even for us, we'd never bought furniture together before because we'd always lived in each other's properties and already had that stuff. So it was like, which sofa shall we buy? And
who was the main one with the choosing?
Probably me. But it was, I probably had not the final say, but I'd be like, okay, here are the options. Which one should we go for?
I like this one.
Yeah. This would be top of my list. What do you think? Yeah, that looks great. Excellent answer. So just give it a go. Like, what's the worst that can happen? If you're committed to doing it, just try.
Thanks, Hannah, for sharing your journey with us, and I hope it's given you all a greater insight into the moving process and a life living in Australia. If you want to see more of what life is like living in Australia, then check out our YouTube channel at That Johnston Life. And if you're worried about the visa process or you've been inspired to make the move yourself, then remember to speak to our friends at True Blue Migration Services and let them tell you for free the easiest way to realise your dreams of moving down under. Follow the hundreds of positive reviews by filling in their free visa eligibility assessment at www.truebluemigration.com. See you next time.